I, Reverend John Hogan, legitimately constituted postulator by the Fr Willie Doyle SJ, actor of the cause and beatification and canonization of the servant of God, William Joseph Gabriel Doyle, professed priest of the Society of Jesus, ask in the name of the same actor and in conformity with the Apostolic Constitution Divinis Perfectionis Magister and the Normae Servandae of the Dicastery for the Causes of Saints, to introduce the cause of the servant of God in your diocese. The servant of God, William Joseph Gabriel Doyle, was born on the 3rd of March, 1873. He was baptized at the local parish church, the Church of the Assumption, Dalkey, on the 13th of March. William's early years were spent at the family home in Melrose, Dalkey. The family was marked by a Catholic piety that formed the hearts and minds of the children. As a child, William was particularly precocious when it came to faith and works of charity. He was known to help the family servants in their work, rising earlier than them to clean out fireplaces and light the fires to ease their workload. As he grew older, his charitable activities saw him frequent the homes of the poor on Dalkey Hill, bringing them food and cleaning their houses. Following secondary education at Ratcliffe College, Lancashire, England, he discerned vocation to the priesthood. He was received into the Society of Jesus on the 31st of March, 1891, at St. Stanislaus College, Tullabeg, Rahon, County Offaly. While in novitiate, he offered his life to Christ through the hands of Mary as a martyr. Following his first profession on the 15th of August, 1893, he served as prefect in Clongowes Wood College, Kildare, and teacher in Belvedere College, Dublin. He undertook philosophical studies in Belgium and Stonyhurst, England, and theological studies at Milltown Park, Dublin. He was ordained priest on the 28th of July, 1907. He made his tertianship at Honchienne, Belgium, and professed final vows on the 2nd of February, 1909. He was appointed to the Jesuit mission team in Britain and Ireland, and from 1909 to 1915, carried out an intense and successful mission as preacher, spiritual director, and confessor. His personal spiritual life was marked by intense prayer and penances conducted under the supervision of his superiors. In his writings, he manifested a desire for holiness, seeking to serve souls and offer his life and work as a reparation for the sins of priests. In his pastoral ministry, he impressed people with his gentleness, holiness, and gift of preaching. He was sought after as a guide of souls, and he directed many through correspondence. In 1914, he helped found a Poor Clare monastery in Cork. He was particularly devoted to providing retreats for working men, and sought to establish a retreat centre for them. He published a number of pamphlets, including one on the rubrics of the Mass, another on retreats for working men, and on vocations. His writings on vocations proved enormously influential and have assisted innumerable men and women to discern vocations to priesthood and religious life, even to the present day. With the outbreak of the First World War, William offered himself for service as a military chaplain. This was accepted in November 1915. William's motivation was to continue his ministry to working men, many of whom were volunteering for service in the army, and to offer himself as a pastor to these men as they faced the real possibility of death each day. In January 1916, he embarked for the front and carried out a difficult and heroic pastoral ministry. In the midst of the horrors of war, he brought consolation, hope, and courage to the men in his care, both Catholic and Protestant, and he was regarded by many as a living saint. He took frequent risks to save men on the battlefield and spent himself in administering the sacraments to the dying and burying the dead. Embracing the extreme deprivation of life in the trenches, he bore them with serenity, patience, and joy, encouraging the soldiers and teaching them the faith. Though awarded a number of military distinctions, including the Military Cross, with humility he was content to carry out his duties for the love of Christ and to be a slave to those he served. William brought Christ to the men caught up in battle. This was also true for those on the other side of the conflict. William showed the same love, pastoral tenderness, and concern for German soldiers captured by the Allies, so much so that many of them came to admire him. William detested the war, deplored the senseless loss of life, sought peace and reconciliation by caring for the souls and the well-beings of the soldiers, maintaining his wit and sense of humour. While William offered pastoral service and sacraments to Catholic soldiers, he was also concerned for the souls of Protestant soldiers and offered them what service he was permitted to do with fidelity to the rules of the Church. He was ecumenical in his love and concern for all souls. In August 1917, during the Battle of Passchendaele, William was extremely busy as casualties and fatalities were high. He was frequently without rest, yet his stamina held out. The years of penance and mortification bore fruit in making him fit for his ministry. Another chaplain was due to relieve him, but did not arrive, so William had to remain at the front and continue his work. On the 16th of August, 1917, in the midst of intense fighting in which large numbers of soldiers were killed, William spent the day on the battlefield under constant and great risk to his life, tending to the dying and trying to rescue the wounded. In the late afternoon, 2 Anglican soldiers from Ulster, 2nd Lieutenants Charles Marlowe and Arthur Green, had fallen in the heat of battle and lay wounded. William saw them from the trench, and even though he recognized the grave danger as shells were raining down upon the troops in that part of the battlefield, he ran to assist them. As he was trying to drag them to a shelter for safety, a German shell hit them and all 3 were killed outright. Soldiers from his battalion ran to him but found that he was dead. They either noted where his body lay or moved to a place they thought safer to be recovered when the fighting eased. Later, when they returned to the spot, they could not find the body. It had either been hit by another shell, completely destroyed, or other soldiers discovered it and buried it somewhere. Testimonies following William's death from both Catholics and Protestants, soldiers and their commanding officers, speak of his heroism, profound holiness, and complete dedication to his mission and to the souls in his care. Immediately devotion to him emerged. This was particularly evident among soldiers he served and their families, who held him in great veneration, as well as those who knew him as a preacher and guide of souls. As news of his heroism on the battlefield spread, devotion also emerged among the faithful. Professor Alfred O'Rahilly's biography of William, which included many details of his private spiritual life, was published in 1920, running through 5 editions and multiple translations. Other biographies followed, and there were calls from around the world for his cause to be opened, and this call has been renewed frequently since the 1920s to our own day. Numerous Catholics and non-Catholics, clergy, religious and laity have been influenced by William's life, ministry and heroism, including a number of saints and blesseds whose own sanctification was marked by his example and spirit, including Saint Josemaria Escrivá and Saint Teresa of Calcutta. This petition to open the cause of beatification and canonization is submitted to Your Excellency under the category of heroic virtues. William strove to reach holiness through the observance of his consecration in the spirit of humility and through an intense offering of life in service to God and neighbour, assisted and deepened by prayer and the practice of self-control and works of mortification. His virtues were manifested externally by his constant dedication to his duties, his unwavering faith, his charity and gentleness to those he met and served, and his orientation towards hope in every situation and difficulty. Throughout his life, William sought to love God and his neighbour above himself. His life of ministry saw many manifestations of charity, as he made himself available to all who sought his help, tended souls with a gentle heart, and made every effort to reach the lost. William's final act on the 16th of August 1917 saw him offer his life to save 2 soldiers. William manifested many other virtues in his life. At the heart of them was humility. His humility was Christ-like. He did not seek honour for himself, nor reward for what he did. He attributed all his efforts and all his successes to Christ. His sense of humour was the means through which he sought to cover up his virtues and growth in holiness, a method of self-deprecation. This humour revealed another prominent aspect of his personality, joy. Possessed of a warm humanity, never surrendering to despondency, William was a witness to joy in his life, though he often suffered and experienced difficulties. His spiritual writings reveal that this joy emerged from a profound love of Jesus Christ, a deep union with him, and the desire to make Christ present in his life and in the lives of those he served. We believe the life and death of Fr Willie Doyle SJ have immense importance for the Church, both in Ireland and universally. He is a good and holy model of the priestly life. He is an example of a committed religious who was faithful to his vows, living the evangelical counsels with humility and joy. He sought holiness, knowing that all disciples of Christ are called to be saints, and that holiness was the ultimate act of fidelity to Christ and the manifestation of God's will for all. William is a model, example, and spiritual mentor for those suffering with mental health issues due to his own experience and recovery from a psychological breakdown in his youth. His work for vocations is inspiring. His desire to offer his life, penances, and even his death as a reparation for the sins of priests can resonate with the Church in these times. His love and service of German soldiers and his ministry as a chaplain offered the Church an example of love for one's perceived enemies, and one who can be seen as a servant of peace and reconciliation. He is also a model of true ecumenism. The actor wishes to petition Your Excellency and the Holy See to open a cause under the category of heroic virtues. As his reputation for sanctity remains among the faithful, despite the many decades since his death, and belief in his intercessory power is strong, as witnessed by numerous people who continue to seek his prayers and help. Together with the evidence of his virtue and heroic death, we request that his cause be introduced.